All right, welcome aboard. Continuing on from the last video where we added the request helper, we are going to add what we promised to add last time, which is going to be the validator. I'm going to start from scratch by typing /clear, which is going to clear my context window and make me start a conversation from scratch with Claude. But since we're starting it in the same folder as Batframe, we already have Claude.md, the instructions about the application in place. So Claude is not going to be starting from scratch. Essentially, it will just read Claude.md to get a grasp of the application. We didn't do the usual intro, and by now I must do that. So hackers and hackerettes, developers and developerettes, welcome aboard, and we are going to add the validator to our PHP framework, microframework, Batframe. Let's do that. I want to add a validator class to my framework. The validator class should include methods for common validation rules. The class should also have a helper method similar to how request, cache, and session work, which is used to interact with the class. Okay. The common validation rules that I can think of are min, like min length, max length, type integer, type string, type boolean, so what else? So type string, type integer, min max, maybe like alphanumeric, like required, nullable, for example, what else we could do? Something like password confirmation. So we could do like confirmed, similar to Laravel. Similar to Laravel's validation rule, where confirmed must match another field. For example, password confirmed should match password confirmation. Add any other methods that you think are useful. So this is the same line that we gave the last time. And then we could tell it the usage of the helper function should look something like, and then validate input. And then here, like rules, input being mixed, rules being, so let's just change this to the rules being an array of rules of like string, or actually instead of string, so you know how you could have so instead of like memorizing things by string, so being an array of enum values, that are resolved from the request or from the validate class itself. That way, no string is ever produced. So the idea here is that I want to like pass in an array. So the final way that's going to look is something like this. So validate, for example, x, and then it's going to be validator, or validator rules, and then something like string, right? Code example, and then here returns true, and then we could do something like so this should be an array, like I said. So here validate 1 2 3, validator rules like min, length, so something like that, and then we pass in like 2. Okay, so this is also an array, and then validator rules, let's say max length is going to be like 4, which should also returns true. Let's do it like that. So that way, like whenever you want to pass values, you just pass them as the value of the array, and then the key, or like the name or the key of the array, is the rule itself. All right, let's let it cook. I'm not worried about what it's gonna do because we are gonna review the code anyway in Git, and we can always reiterate, which is something that you'll get familiar with like so much whenever you're working with AI, is that you give it like an initial prompt, try to be as detailed as possible and as like explicit as possible, but then sometimes AI is just still not gonna grasp what you want. So it's best to just give it a prompt to get it started, and then once it gets started, you'll get a feel for what the AI understands, and from there it's going to be much easier to reiterate and correct its course, rather than just giving it a single prompt that gives everything. Of course, if you can do that, sure, go ahead and do it, but I've found it like you cannot escape the refinement and the reiteration process. Essentially, you just have to. Okay, so now it's asking about the rule syntax. How should rules, especially parameterized ones like min-length, be expressed? Given enum cases can't be array keys. Oh, enum cases cannot be array keys. I actually did not know that. So rule factory class. Tuple list. No, tuple list is not good. Either rule factory or just an enum builder. I'm gonna go with rule factory because I think it's just the easiest and the most straightforward ever. So rule factory class, I think this is the best. Yes, I think this is the best. It's also like when it was autocomplete, you could just add like type rule and then see all the available rules instead of like memorizing strings, which is good in my opinion. And then an extension, the confirmed rule. What does that mean? A single value can provide the field's name and access to a sibling field, password versus password confirmation. The primary example is validate a loan value, which has neither. So I need to know how far the scope goes. So I wish like you would show me the entire thing here. Multi-field only, single value only. What input shape should validate support? This decides whether confirmed and cross-field rules can work at all. So we'll do like single value only because I want validate to be like single value. And then we could add like another helper method like validate all. What should validate return do? Your examples show it returning true, but a framework often wants more than a bare bool. So bool plus inspectable errors, throw on failure. I think throw on failure is just gonna be the easiest thing. Because this is what I expect. Like I want to validate and then not worry about it anymore. Confirmed and cross-field rules fall out of scope. They are meaningless without sampling fields. So I'll drop them. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Maybe we can figure out another way to handle this later. But the next thing will be after adding the validation, like the single value validate, is to add validate all or validate many, I guess. So now it's gonna check the HTTP exception and error rendering. So it's gonna look for this file and understands how the exception is thrown. And then from there, I believe it should... All right, so now it's giving us a plan. Let's actually go through it. Full 4 pieces in a new Batframe validation namespace. Rule, immutable value object plus factories. So it's giving us a bunch of things. Regex, alphanumeric, alpha, email. That's interesting. We did not tell to add email. Required, nullable. So the call site vocabulary, each factory contains a rule. That's good. That's your requested set. Min, max, integer, string, boolean, alpha, num, plus numeric, and other stuff. Okay. Validator, the engine, swappable singleton. Mirrors session cache. That's wonderful. So we can always swap our validator later. Validation exception carries errors. One small edit to Batframe render exception. Okay, validate helper. Same shape as session cache. Validator the validator instance. Validate true or throw validation exception. Evaluation semantics. Min max. All of this looks good to me. All of this looks good to me. The only comment I have is we can add a validate mini helper function next to validate, which could which accepts an array like a key value array, also called an associative array, of things to validate as the key and the rules as the value. Example, validate many, and then here x is going to be a bunch of rules. So rule string. And then we could also do something like y rule integer as an example. Let's see if it understands that. Caramelizing. That's a good verb. Caramelizing. That's a clean addition. Thanks, man. It's always good when AI like commends you. One inherent quirk worth noting, because the values live in array keys, PHP's key coercion applies, e.g. 123 becomes int 123, 1 or empty for bools. Fine for string int inputs, which is the intended use. Okay. The errors on the singleton versus on the exception. Since validate throws on failure, the singleton's errors is really the only meaningful after a non-throwing passes fails call. Worth keeping, or drop errors from the validator and let the caller read validation exception errors in the catch. The numeric string size rule. Measured by length 3, not value. It honors the original example, but it's the one place someone could be surprised, called out explicitly in the spec. Once you're happy, I'll invoke the writing plans. For let's the singleton's errors is really only meaningful after a non-throwing passes fails. Worth keeping. Let's remove it because throwing on failure is always going to happen. All right. And then if the user is measuring value, like using between, they should confirm that the value is an integer before they pass it in. However, we can so if the user wants to validate an integer, they should do validate int value, int value, and then here like rule, I don't know, between 1 and 5, something like that. So we're gonna leave that on the users, or like on the user, not us. I mean, you cannot even use between on a string. Like, what would that be? Both make sense. Okay, so it's adding like a little bit of docs. Which is always good, by the way. Like, docs are always welcome. So let's see here what it did add. Oh, it committed it. It did commit the revision. Okay. Well, you did commit before I could review the code changes. Never ever do that again. Make sure to never commit before I give you the explicit go ahead. So it learned that. It looks like it like read from one memory or something that it committed before. So it should do that again. But right now it should like fix that. Let's do a git log. Also, there's something that I want to check. Oh, we do have a superpower file, which I did not ask it to do, honestly. I can undo them with a soft reset, so those changes go back into being uncommitted, unreviewable, and nothing gets committed again until you say so. Yeah, do that so I can review them. Then also remove the docs super, like these super power specs docs, because I don't want them in the repo. Make sure to note what is worth noting in the doc and add it to claude.md where necessary. Also, never add docs again because I will not bloat the repo with doc files. Okay, because if you just let it do that, it's gonna create an insane amount of doc files and they will all be marked down and you will not be taking a single look at them. Although they might be important for the AI, but this is why we told it to like record what's necessary to claude.md and just move on with your life. Don't want to bloat the entire repo. So let's see what it says to us. I believe right now it's going to do a soft reset. So we'll be able to see actually the commits that he did right here. Or like the files that changed essentially. And from there, we're going to review the code. And then we can, like once we have the code ready, we can give it the explicit go ahead. So that's a good thing, actually. It just wrote the no docs rule to memory. So it sticks, which is great. You do want that. You don't want to let Claude like spiral out of control. Because if you let it do that, then you'll be suffering. So confirm both are mine, and committing them, soft reset, keeps the file so nothing is lost. Then removing the doc, and it's now empty directories. Great, so we don't see any more commits here. And now we don't see any docs folders anymore. Clean, now worth noting the worth noting bits into Claude. Now we don't see the files yet, so that's also a problem. So let's see. Is it gonna add, like, re-add the files, or is it going to not do that? So it's adding like validation to Claude.md, which is fine. We are still like 125 lines or 26 lines in Claude.md. This is great. Okay, the 2 commits are gone. The spec doc is deleted. Claude.md updated. I can't see the files that you edited earlier. So that means there is no implementation of the validation anywhere. Bring back the files without committing them. I hope that's the correct way to write committing. Let me verify against the actual repo before I say anything, so I am certain. That is actually a good sign, so it does not want to hallucinate. So this is actually a good gesture, in my opinion. So let's just let it cook. I checked the repo and the reflog, and I want to be straight with you. There is no validator implementation to bring back because I never wrote one. What? Yeah, go ahead and implement it. Wait, so what were the, like, the 2 commits were just docs? I thought the first commit was the actual implementation, and the second one was the doc, like the docs for the superpower thing. Oh, this is why it's doing TDD, because it's coming in from the superpowers. If you don't know what superpowers is, let me show you. Actually, a fun thing to know. So if you do slash and then plugins, you can choose a lot of plugins from this thing. Like, there are so many plugins. And plugins are essentially like MCP integrations. So for example, this one is for Firebase. So it teaches Claude how to deal with things. For example, we do have a Laravel boost. So this is Laravel Development Toolkit MCP server. Provides intelligence to probably Claude to learn how to use these things. And you have a bunch of them. And then the only ones I have installed are a bunch right here. I do have some of my own, but these are skills. So yeah, take a look at this if you're ever working with, like, for example, you're working with Stripe or something. So Stripe development plugin for Claude, you could install Stripe and then just super easily add Stripe to your application. So yeah, make sure to check the skills if you're working with something like specific. Make sure to check that. Once you install a skill or a plugin, whatever you want to call it, then you need to add reload, like reload plugins. So if you like slash reload plugins and reload skills, but whatever you install, like if it's plugins, you have to reload plugins. It's also gonna like tell you on the right here, once you install a plugin, that you should run reload plugins to make things reflect. So yeah. we're waiting here for our boy Claude to add the validator class, which is great. Okay, so it's writing the core engine plus rules test first, RED. Wonderful. Because it's using the test-driven development, or TDD, from superpowers, which is one of the skills that I installed. So it lets it write like tests first before even writing the main class itself, like the code, which is okay. Uh, in a framework, I think this is really good. Because you do want like all of your functionality and all of your code to be fully tested. So right now, every single feature that we introduce is actually tested. So we are like 100%. No, watch them fail. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, you make sure that all 30 errors because the class functions are missing. One test also references null view engine from dispatch test, which isn't loaded in isolation and would clash on full suite runs. Give this file its own view engine. Now the implementation. Okay. That's beautiful. So once we have all of the tests written, that's wonderful. All right, this is looking good. This is looking good. It's cooking. So we do have Batframe, adding in the validation exception implementation. Green, all 30 pass. Now the full suite. Confirm nothing else broke, including the shared class concern with the two view engines. So now we should be having a full validation class. All 102 pass. Let me verify a couple of housekeeping items. PHP 8.1 compatibility, and whether the README lists helper so I keep it consistent without adding new doc files. Good. README documents each helper with a short usage section, so consistency calls for brief validate one, not new doc. Okay, so it's trying to like internally rationalize if it should update like the docs or not, because I told it no docs, but then it came to the conclusion, which is the correct one, that it should update existing ones but not create new ones, which is what we want and what we expect. Awesome stuff. So here we have rule, which is our validation rules. We have our validation exception. Great. Validator. Great. And then helper and validator test. Okay. So it looks like we have everything ready. Two things was flagging. Boolean accepts exactly true, false. 0, 1, 0, 1, true, false. Strict set. Not the looser yes on that filter validate pool would allow. Pinned in the test. Tell me if you want it looser. Everything targets PHP 8.1. Okay. Even though the suite ran on 8.4, don't standalone true return types. Review whenever you like. I won't commit until you give the explicit go ahead. Want any changes first. Okay. So let's actually do our manual test that we've been doing so far by actually writing in our sandbox. So if you don't know, we do have an application running that actually uses the code from Batframe. So this is like a standalone application that I'm using Batframe in. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to run the validate. And the validate accepts only one parameter. So I'm going to validate name against a bunch of rules. So I'm going to just write rule. And we're going to do required, for example. Okay. So of course we need to use the rule here. So Batframe validation rule. So then it's going to do that. Let me just confirm actually if the rule, yeah, it is in validation. So Batframe validation and then rule. So this should work. So now we are expecting a name parameter in our request. So I'm gonna open up git bash. We do not have our curl options. Okay. Post http localhost 4002. That's the port that I'm running this thing at. So curl x post http, and then we want the h to be content type application JSON, and then the data is going to be some JSON. So name is going to be Michael. That's it. So here we're getting method not allowed. That's okay because I'm sending a post request. I need to send it to post test. So let me just move this here. Validation rule. Re-import that. And then here, hello there, name. So from the form, let's just do a post. So it gets it from anywhere. Okay. So when we do that, method not allowed because I need to send it to /test. It says hello there, Michael, which is awesome. So that way we know at least that the validation is passing. So let's send it without our name. So let's just change this to names. And then it says hello there, fallback. Okay. So this validate is not throwing an exception, which is a problem because validate should throw an exception. So if we go to the helpers, we look at the validate function right here. So when we run validate, it just gets the validator instance. If rules equal null, return validator. So it just returns empty. And then validator validate. So then it's going to run this. If errors doesn't equal an empty array, so if there are errors, throw new validation exception. So if we look at the validation exception here, it just says the given data was invalid. So it just returns like a construct method for this exception right here. Interesting. I think it looks right to me, but But yeah, I'm not sure. So we are accepting an array of rules and then a mixed value. Oh, we are validating a value. We're not validating a request. Okay. So request post name. So this is what we're doing. And then we do that. Unprocessable entity, the given data was invalid. This is it. So what we're doing is that we're validating the value itself instead of validating the request. The request value of the request here, which is fine. This is great. I'm going to commit this. But I don't think I'm gonna validate or test everything in validation rule. So if we go to rule here, we can see there are a bunch of rules. So we have required, we have nullable, we have string, whatever. We also have maybe we can create a way to add custom validation rules. But we'll see about that. We'll see if we can we can extend this later on. Commit and push it. Don't forget to tag and release it. So packagist picks it up. Add this note to the memory. So whenever I ask you to commit and push a new update, it should automatically tag and release it. Add a release for it. Okay. This is looking great. So it's going to run everything. I hope it doesn't leak any tokens. But to be safe, I'm just going to send it on another screen. Okay, so we can remove this, and it looks like we have the latest as 060. And if I give it a refresh right here, we do have the README, which is wonderful. Okay, so wonderful. Now I want to add something extra to this. I want to add a validate helper function on the request or on the request class. However, the request validate should fetch the value of the key in validate instead of validating the actual key itself. So an example would be request validate name, and then rules here like rule required. This should validate the value, this should do request post, or this should be equivalent to validate, and then request post name, and then we pass in here the rule required. So it fetches the value of the request param first, then it uses its value to validate against. I think this is good enough. Hopefully the explanation is clear. So it just wants to check what is the source. It's going to be like input, but we don't have an input method. It should be called post, not input. All right. So we're just gonna let it cook. Oh wait, no, I think it should be input. So let's stop it. Actually, I click Control C to interrupt it. Actually, instead of using post, I think using input is the correct method. In fact, don't use don't use a helper or like don't use a method at all, and just use the request name instead of request input name. That way it always follows whatever default we set for request later on. So yeah, we can like correct the course right here, and it's gonna go back and correct the test, whatever it wrote, and it's going to like adjust. This is fine. So right here, it's editing the request. Okay, so it's adjusting its plan right now. Almost done thinking. Let's see what we get here. Good call. That's a cleaner and future-proofs it. Always good when you get commended by the AI. So here is, I think it's gonna write the tests. No, it updated the request. Okay. So this is good. So here on the request, it's running a validate function or adding a validate function, which is great. Yeah, so right here, what it's doing is it's just running some tests to make sure that whatever we're passing is actually getting swapped. Cool. Green, full suite to confirm nothing regressed. So this is great. It's a simple edit, but it just improves the improves everything. Let's actually test it right now. So we do have the old validate right here, but we're gonna swap that with request validate, and then we are going to run here name, and then we're just gonna do rule required. Of course, it just keeps removing the rule. Batframe. Oh, there we go. All right, so it looks like we are ready. Let's test it. So we are sending names, Michael, and it says unprocessable entity given data was invalid. That's awesome. So then we can do this, and then we get hello there, Michael. So that means we actually improved by doing request validate. So now we can just pass in the request name or like the parameter name that we're expecting to validate. And then we can like essentially just use it while we're sure that it exists. So I'm gonna add another rule here. So let's do like min length, and then we just do it 10, for example. So this is gonna fail. Oh, no, it did not fail. Call to undefined method min length. Is it not min length? Is it like min? Yeah. So the value must be at least 10. So just minimum. Okay. So let's actually improve Michael by just adding a bunch of S's to make it definitely more than 10 characters, and it looks like it's working pretty well. That's some wonderful stuff. So it looks like we got it. Yeah, it looks like we have every update good to go. We got Claude to update our Claude MD. We have the new README, and it's just beautiful. Wonderful stuff. Everything works. Make sure to push, tag, and release it. And I'm gonna move it to the second screen just to make sure that we have everything ready. So here it says I'll commit push tag 070, and it's just running a push and tag. I have it on the second screen because I don't want it to leak any kind of tokens or something, because it did that before when I was recording, and it just showed some tokens in the like little command hints or like bash commands hints that it runs. So it gives me the okay right here that it released 070, which looks like correct. And then we can refresh here and we get 707 as the last push. This is all wonderful. So now we are getting close to an actual micro framework that has a bunch of features and makes development super fast. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Feel free to like, subscribe the video, give me some feedback about these things. We will be continuing this saga for whenever we like have a feeling for it. There are a bunch of things that we could add and make things better. For example, we could add like a CLI tool, which we could use to create a bunch of things. We could also improve the current validation system by making people create their own rules, by like extending the main role class, a bunch of things that could be done. But anyway, we'll be continuing the saga for when I have like new ideas for the micro framework. This whole series has been like amazing for me. It taught me so much about how to use Claude and actually like get something actually useful. And it's been fun recording and just talking about it. So if you enjoyed it as much as I do, let me know in the comments below. Any support, any feedback, positive or negative, is always welcome. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in a different video. See you.